It's a story from the Yellowstone Valley in North America, and it's a story that was collected and recorded in 1972, so it hasn't just been trumped up, for the current climate. Ac dyma'r stori. There's a researcher, and he's been going around some of the tribes, gathering stories and having conversations, finding out what he wanted to know. And he's talking to an old Indian, very, very old Indian. And they're in the Yellowstone Valley, where it's been raining for many weeks, and they've been talking about the young people and about the vision of the young people. And the old man, his skin so brown and wrinkled that he's the colour of the rocks that he's sitting amongst, is sitting still, and he becomes silent. And after a while he says, "They are coming back, What's coming back? The creatures, they are coming back." And then he went quiet again, and he began his story. And he said, "The Great Spirit, when he made this land, he blessed it, and he smiled upon it. And he gave us grasslands and plains, and great plains and forests. And he gave us the creatures to live here. And then he made mankind. And he taught them how to live in harmony with the beasts and with nature around them. And he taught them especially to care for the buffalo. He said to them, if you are friends with the buffalo, if you honor the buffalo as your brother, the buffalo will provide for all your needs. His hide will give you clothing and shelter from the cold and from the heat. And from the wool you can weave cloth, and his meat will fill your bellies. So honor the buffalo, and all will be well." And so it was. And the people lived in peace and in harmony in the beauty of the land. And when they hunted the buffalo, they gave thanks to the Great Spirit and to the spirit of the buffalo. And when they held their rituals, they danced the dance of the buffalo. And all was well. But time went by, and people came who did not honor the old ways. And they began to shoot and to kill the animals for sport. And they didn't thank the spirit of the buffalo when they shot him. And they began to burn the ground, and they began to cut the forests, and they put foul poisons in the water. And the Great Spirit looked down, and he was saddened by what he saw. And he told the wind not to blow. So the smoke of their fires gathered and stayed in the valley, and the people began to choke and they began to cough. But still they carried on, killing and cutting and burning and fouling. And the Great Spirit looked down and was even more saddened by what he saw, and he sent the rains to fall to put out the fires and as a warning for the people. And the rains fell. And the rains fell, and the waters began to rise. And the animals began to go up into the hills. And the people, they moved from the valley floor, they moved further up the hills. And still the rains fell. And Spotted Bear, who was the medicine man, he called to the people, the old people, and he said, "We were taught by the Great Spirit that if we honored the buffalo, that all would be well, that we would be protected and fed. But the buffalo have gone, and everything that we love is being destroyed. If we do not find the buffalo again and learn to live once more in peace, in harmony with nature, we will all die." And the young people went out, and they looked for the buffalo, and still the rains fell, and still the waters rose, and the people moved further up the mountains, and the animals had disappeared from sight. And after a long time, the young people who went out, everywhere they went, they saw what had happened to the land. They saw the destruction. They put out the fires. They tried to clean up the waters, and they planted more trees, and they hunted and looked for the white buffalo. And finally, some of them came back to the medicine man, and they said, "We have seen the buffalo. We saw the bull and the calf and the cow buffalo. And the cow and the calf went off up into the mountains, but the bull was standing beside the flooded river, and he fell into the flood. And we dragged out his body, but he was dead. And we have brought you the skin." And they presented the medicine man with the skin of the white buffalo, and he opened it out on the ground, and still the rains were falling. And he and the other medicine men began to scrape and clean the buffalo skin. And they scraped and they cleaned it, and the rains fell on it. And as the rains fell on it, the skin stretched, and still they scraped and cleaned, and it stretched even more. It stretched so much that it reached right across the valley from one side to the other. And Spotted Bear, he took one corner of the buffalo skin, and he hooked it up over Beartooth Mountain. And he took another corner of the buffalo skin, and he hooked it up over Crazy Mountain. And he took another corner of the buffalo skin, and he hooked it up over the Blue Tree Mountain. And he took the other corner, and he hooked it over Bull Mountain. And there the buffalo skin stretched right over the valley. And the rains continued to fall, but they could not fall beyond the buffalo skin. And below, the land began to dry up. And as the land dried up, so the people began to move back into the valley. And still the rains fell, but not upon the valley of Yellowstone. And the animals came back. And as the animals came back into the valley, the people lived in peace and respected the animals. And the rains continued to fall, and the great buffalo skin began to sag in the middle. And Spotted Bear, he lifted up the west side of the skin, and he hooked it high up on the hills, so that the west wind could blow beneath, and the west wind blew in and lifted up the buffalo skin until it was a great dome over the whole valley. And the Great Spirit looked down, and he saw that the people were no longer killing and burning and fouling and destroying the land. And so he stopped the rain, and the sun shone on the buffalo skin, and the sun on the wet buffalo skin caused colours, all the colours of the sun, to sparkle, blue and gold and green and red, until the buffalo skin was a great shining dome of colour. And in the sun it dried, and it dried, and it dried, and it shrunk until it was just an arc of rainbow light across the valley from one side to the other. And the old man fell silent. And then he spoke again, and he said to the gentleman at his side, he said, "Look." And they looked as where he pointed up the valley, and there, grazing in the middle of the valley, beneath the rainbow, was the buffalo cow.